Justin ran to his parents in tears, but upon getting there, he met his parents devastated. They too had received news that their family's businesses had caught fire and burnt to the ground. An untraceable account had transferred all their savings.
Once upon a time, in a small town in Jamaica, there lived a woman named Annabelle. She was the youngest of 3 children residing with their parents in a small home nestled at the foot of the Blue Mountain Hills. Despite their poverty, their family never lacked the needed love and attention. Until one day, while fetching water, Annabelle met a young man looking for directions to a particular place. Annabelle helped him, and before he could thank her, she left, rushing home to start preparing for her family dinner. The following day, Annabelle ran into the same man again. He stopped her to ask her name, and she introduced herself. He thanked her for helping him the other time and told her his name was Justin. She smiled and told him it was no problem. As she got ready to walk away, he asked if he could get to know her, to which she declined, telling him she wasn't interested, and she hurriedly left. One day, Annabelle's parents got an unexpected visit from Justin, asking for their daughter. They told him she wasn't at home and asked who he was to her. In that moment, he explained that he had met her twice and was interested in marrying her, but wished to seek their blessing. Justin introduced himself as the Johnsons' only son, who had been living abroad for many years and recently returned. He expressed his intention to marry and settle down in his home country. After much discussion, Justin left, leaving Annabelle's parents with a decision to make regarding whether they would allow their youngest daughter to marry Justin Johnson, who was from the wealthiest family in the community. Annabelle's mother, having worked for the Johnsons as a domestic staff for the past few years, was well aware of their background. While Annabelle's parents were discussing their youngest daughter's fate, Mark and Nancy, Annabelle's older siblings, overheard their parents' conversation and joined in excitement. Their enthusiasm prompted their parents to agree for their little sister to be married into the wealthy Johnson family. When Annabelle got home, she was met with warm hugs and smiles from her family. When she asked what was going on, her family broke the news to her with one unanimous voice, agreeing that she should accept Justin's offer. They emphasized that the influence and connections from the Johnson family would be of great help to their family and aid in their financial troubles. When Annabelle refused, her family's warm smiles turned into frowns and eventually anger. They firmly told her she had no choice. Annabelle, overwhelmed, broke down in tears and ran out of the house, desperately thinking of a way to escape the arranged marriage her family was pushing her into. As the weeks went by, wedding arrangements were made, and Annabelle had lost the battle in fighting her family against marrying someone she didn't know or love. In the first few months of their marriage, Justin did everything he could to win over his new wife's heart. However, all his efforts didn't work on Annabelle. Instead, she kept crying and would stay inside the house all day, saddened that her own family forced her into a marriage because of money. The overwhelming sadness engulfed her, and she refused to speak to any members of her family. A year went by, and Justin's patience ran out. Annabelle soon realized that Justin was not a gentle man. He started using harsh words towards his wife, entering her bedroom with ill intentions in his mind. This continued for weeks, despite Annabelle's pleas, and Justin persisted in his wicked ways. One day, Annabelle's parents came visiting. While discussing with her parents, Justin's watchful eyes were on her. She got a few minutes alone with her mother in the kitchen and told her how Justin was treating her and all that had been happening. However, her mother did not believe her and dismissed her pleas, stating that she wouldn't listen to her daughter's lies about her husband, Justin, because he was a good man. In tears, Annabelle walked away. Little did Annabelle know that one of the maids was eavesdropping on her conversation with her mother and went to report back to Justin. After Annabelle's parents left, she immediately met with a furious Justin who spared no time in dealing with her mercilessly, resulting in a hospital visit. Annabelle told the doctors what her husband did to her, and they notified the authorities. Unfortunately, the authorities collected a bribe from Justin, and Annabelle was yet again forced to go back to her abusive husband. With her parents not believing her and the authorities covering up for Justin, she had no one to run to. A few months later, Annabelle found herself pregnant. She tried her best to avoid Justin's troubles, doing everything she could to not provoke his anger. Now, she not only had to protect herself, but also had to ensure nothing happened to her unborn baby. One evening, Justin got home from his business. When he checked for his food, Annabelle told him she wasn't feeling well and didn't have the strength to cook his meal. He flew into a rage and started pounding on her. She tried her best to cover her stomach as she begged him to stop hurting her, but it only made him more angry. After some minutes, he demanded Annabelle to go prepare his meal. She tried to comply but slumped. He screamed at her, but she did not respond.
"Stop pretending, Annabelle!"
The maid informed him that she wasn't moving. Annabelle was rushed to the hospital, where the doctors confirmed that she had passed away. The news of Annabelle's demise spread throughout the community, and her family was in despair, realizing that they had essentially sold Annabelle in exchange for money. It felt as if they were the ones who pushed her into her grave. When they confronted Justin about what happened to Annabelle, he told them she fell down the stairs, forcing himself to shed a few tears. Not too long after they buried Annabelle and her unborn child, they soon forgot her as the gifts from the Johnson family kept on coming. Annabelle's older siblings, Mark and Nancy, got married and started having children of their own. All was going well, and they felt life had really favored them. Little did they know that their lives were going to take a turn for the worst. While everyone was busy enjoying their newfound wealth, Justin was busy preparing to marry another woman from a poor family. He consulted his late wife's family, who fully supported him. Feeling it was safe to remarry without arousing suspicion in the community, he went ahead and married his new wife, Christina. Little did he know, this was the beginning of his troubles. Weeks after his marriage to Christina, Justin had a multi-million-dollar investment that he put all his life savings into. Assured by his business associate that it was a sure deal, he invested everything he had, relying on years of successful experience in the business. That same night, he had a dream about his late wife Annabelle standing over him as he slept, holding her pregnant stomach and crying. He awoke from his sleep, scared and alarmed because the dream felt incredibly real. As he arose from his bed, he saw his deceased wife again, standing and looking at him angrily with pain and grief in her eyes. Rushing over to his wife Christina, he asked her if she saw anything. Christina told him no and asked what was going on. He replied and told her nothing, instructing her to forget he asked anything. Annabelle's spirit kept appearing to Justin in his dreams and while he was awake. This continued for some weeks until one day he got a call from his business associate. With excitement in his voice and on his face, he waited to hear the good news of their investment paying off. However, the opposite would be the case. It turned out the company they had invested in was a made-up company, and all the documentation was a fraud. Before his business partner could finish explaining, Justin went tumbling down, with his wife Christina running to his side. After he recovered, Justin told his wife Christina everything. She offered to help him with the little money she had saved up from what he had given her. She wanted to contribute more to start a business of her own. Initially refusing, he was persuaded by Christina to put pride aside and do what was needed for their family. He eventually collected the money from Christina and thanked her for standing by him. And so, he reinvested in his business, not trusting any third-party investments after the major loss. Just as last time, his business crashed and he lost everything. This time, there was no explanation as to who or what happened to the money. It seemed like it had vanished. On his way home with yet another heartbreaking news, he stopped to discuss with his parents to see if they'd help him too, which they agreed after hearing all he had been going through. They cautioned him to be careful with his investment this time around, to which he agreed. He had ideas of changing business altogether and going into car dealership. A month after he established this business, it caught fire and was burnt to the ground. The fire department could only perform cooling down operations. Justin ran to his parents in tears, but upon getting there, he met his parents devastated. They, too, had received news that their family's businesses had caught fire and burnt to the ground. An untraceable account had transferred all their savings. As they all stood there frozen, Justin's parents mentioned that the bank reported a pregnant woman entering the bank to make the transfer, having all necessary documents. However, when the Johnsons called the bank, the account could no longer be traced. As the days went by, more strange happenings kept plaguing the Johnsons family, especially Justin. The family had lost everything they owned, all their businesses and investments. All their business partners had walked away from the family, avoiding the perceived bad luck that seemed to accompany them. The once wealthiest family in the entire community was now living hand-to-mouth. They eventually had to let go of their domestic staff, as they had no money to pay them their monthly salary. Annabelle's parents heard everything that had been happening with Justin and his family, so they decided to visit. When they saw the condition the once rich and flashy Justin had been reduced to, they offered to help him with a few thousand from their small business he had set up for them. They promised to visit him the following day with a check, no matter how small, to assist him. He thanked them, and they headed home. The next morning, Annabelle's parents were getting ready to go see Justin to give him the check as they promised. Suddenly, they saw their daughter Annabelle's spirit appear with eyes red as blood, warning them not to give Justin the check. Both her parents were shocked as they clung to each other, frightened for their lives. They rushed back inside, panting and sweating, wondering what that encounter meant. They contemplated whether to listen to the spirit or fulfill their promise to Justin. As they sat at home, wondering what the message from their deceased daughter could mean, they got a visit from Justin. He asked them if they had changed their minds. Seeing him looking broken and lost, they decided to give him the check, stating that's all they had. He thanked them and was on his way. Not too long after, Annabelle's family began to suffer the consequences of their disobedience. Their businesses started suffering, and they stopped making sales in their supermarket. The goods would stay there until they went bad, and all their customers stopped buying. They were eventually forced to work minimal jobs to survive. Mark and Nancy both lost their jobs on the same day and were solely relying on their spouses for monetary support for some time. However, they could no longer afford to pay their rents in the city. Consequently, they had no choice but to return to their parents' small wooden home in the country. Their spouses refused to follow them back to the country and decided to go their separate ways. With great shame, Mark and Nancy held their heads down while they walked through the community to get to their parents' home. People whispered and pointed, accusing the entire family of being cursed. One woman said aloud, "How can one family go from being poor to rich overnight after the death of their daughter and sister Annabelle? And now, they're all going back to the old house they used to live in. Something isn't right." They all nodded in agreement, realizing the puzzling things that had been happening around Annabelle's family and the Johnsons since she died. As the family slept that night, they were all visited by Annabelle's spirit, delivering them a message.
As you sold me to a beast for money and riches, who eventually ended my young life and that of my unborn baby, you will never enjoy the wealth I lost my life for. You all will work until your hands bleed to feed. The way you started, so shall you remain. For helping Justin when I warned you not to, this is the fate.
They all jumped from their sleep, screaming, and rushed to the living room. No one had words as they all wept, until eventually Annabelle's mother said she should have listened to her daughter when she told her she was being mistreated by Justin. But she didn't believe her. They were all regretting pushing her into a marriage she didn't want, but it was too late. They had let greed blind them to the pain Annabelle was suffering because of their selfish decisions. Back at Justin's house, his wife Christina packed her bags. Despite all his pleas, she left him behind, stating he should expect divorce papers soon. With his wife leaving him and his home empty, he sought advice from a childhood friend who told him he'd take him to someone that would help him. Early the next morning, Justin and his friend headed out. While on their way, Justin's friend told him to keep quiet when they reach their destination and only speak when he's asked a question. Justin asked where his friend was taking him, and he mentioned to witch doctors. Though Justin wasn't into spiritual readers and seers, he was willing to do anything to find answers to his many troubles. After they got there, the witch doctors spat on the floor and asked Justin not to enter her shrine because his hands were stained with the blood of the innocent. Shocked, he tried to say something, but his friend covered his mouth, prompting him to keep quiet. The witch doctor revealed that there's nothing she can do for him. His only option is to confess what he has done and pray that Annabelle's family forgave him. If not, he will continue to suffer. She further narrated that the spirit of vengeance had visited his household with poverty and despair. No business he does will ever be fruitful, and whosoever gives him financial assistance will also suffer the same fate. His parents losing all their wealth is a result, and also Annabelle's family. She warned that if he didn't confess to what he had done, he would never be free of the vengeful spirit of his wife. He began to shed tears as he begged the witch doctor to help him. Still refusing to confess to Annabelle's family, he asked what else could be done because if he confesses, he will be jailed. And since he was now poor, he had no money to bribe his way out of jail. The witch doctor told him that maybe, just maybe, he could cage her spirit, and that would stop all the destruction around him. Without hesitation, he agreed. The witch doctor uttered some sacred words and gave him instructions on what to do. She firmly stated that she would not perform them for him. Since he took innocent lives, he would be the only one to face the consequences if things went bad. She warned him that it might not work, and if it didn't, he would not live to see the daybreak. He agreed and collected the items. While on their way out, his friend decided to stay away from him, heeding the witch doctor's warning. He warned against attempting to cage the powerful, vengeful spirit, but instead advised him to go to the family, confess what he had done, and pray that they forgive him. However, he didn't heed his friend's warning, angrily walked away, and headed home. That night, Justin prepared to perform the ritual to cage his wife's spirit. As he attempted to call the name of his wife 3 times, she appeared and struck him from behind. As he held up his hand to continue his incantations, she repeatedly struck him until he went deaf and dumb. He raised his hands once more, and she struck him in his face, and his eyes went blind. Then she disappeared. The next morning, Justin's childhood friend, fearing Justin didn't take his advice not to perform the ritual, rushed to Justin's parents' house and also Annabelle's family's house to inform them of everything. Pleading on Justin's behalf, he asked them to forgive him before it's too late. He managed to convince them to follow him to Justin's house. After some convincing, they agreed and they all went there. When they got to Justin's house, they called out but heard no response. So his parents used their spare keys to enter the home. They rushed to Justin's bedroom and found him laying on his bedroom floor crying tears. For a few minutes, he regained his speech just long enough to beg for forgiveness. Annabelle's spirit appeared and struck him once more in front of everyone, and he immediately passed away. His parents cried for their beloved son, regretting the way they raised him to be entitled. They blamed themselves for not calling Justin to order when he was getting out of control. They asked Annabelle's family to forgive them for what Justin did to Annabelle. Annabelle's family went home, leaving the Johnsons to bury their son. As they regretted everything, they came together as a family, contemplating a way forward. They resolved to work hard for everything they needed and never to repeat the mistakes of their past, which cost them their beloved daughter and sister. Annabelle's once vengeful spirit became calm, and her distorted appearance transformed back into her former beautiful self. As she gazed at the family she once belonged to, the family that pushed her to an early grave for the sake of money, she smiled and waved them goodbye. And so, Annabelle's spirit vanished, never to return. This story teaches us that not everything that glitters is gold. Being content with what one has is paramount, and working hard and earning an honest living is an admirable and respectful way to live. Marriage should be a choice between 2 people who accept and love each other. Forcefully pushing a daughter or someone into marriage because of money will never end well. It often ends in dire consequences, as that person will never be treated as an equal. Also, this story teaches us that asking for forgiveness after wronging someone is the best course of action, as no dark secret can stay hidden forever. Did you enjoy this story? If you did, please like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notifications bell to stay updated on our future posts. Thank you for watching.